All right, ladies and gentlemen, we now turn to a subject that holds both urgency and critical operational value. The topic is lessons learned from the war in Israel and Ukraine from an air defense perspective. These two contemporary conflicts have transformed the global understanding of air defense with real-time lessons in threat response, system agility, integrated operations, and resilience under saturation attacks. To guide us through this important discussion, we are honored to have a distinguished panel comprising seasoned military leaders and domain experts from India and Israel. From the Indian Navy, may I please invite on stage Commodore Manav, bringing the maritime dimension of air defense into sharp focus during this panel discussion. We extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Please join us on the stage. Thank you. Next, we have Brigadier MKK Iyer, a veteran in air defense artillery with deep experience in India's layered air defense network. Sir, may I please invite you on stage? Kindly join us here. Joining us from Israel, we welcome Mr. Eyal Zohar, representing ELTA Systems, IAI. We extend a warm welcome to you as well, sir. Mr. Zohar is a global leader in radar and electronic warfare systems. Also from Israel, we have Colonel Chaim Moriya from Israel Aerospace Industries, a combat-proven expert with operational insights drawn from the ongoing conflict in the region. You've also heard his talk earlier in the day. Thank you once again, sir, for being with us today. And chairing this session is Major General Neera Shukla, Additional Director General, Strategic Planning, a key figure in India's strategic planning and force modernization. This panel will explore how lessons from these modern conflicts can inform and strengthen India's own air defense doctrine, deployment strategies, and technological collaborations. With that, I'm going to hand it over to General Shukla and the esteemed panel to please carry it forward.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Even before I start, what Dr. Purohit started off by his alibi in his organization, that a weapon should be light and a bullet should be low cost, I would add one more factor in that the time is premium. Gentlemen, and we must stick to time. While this topic that we are going to be having a panel discussion on is very relevant, and ever since these wars started, that is Russia-Ukraine war and the incident of, I would not call them war, they are basically conflicts, regional conflicts, and between Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis, we know that there cannot be any better agency or an army or a force to talk about the lessons learned from the AD perspective or otherwise as a conflict, how to handle, than the Israelis themselves. So we are very glad and proud that we are in alliance with a civilizational partner like the Israelis. And just to touch a personal chord, I was, in the US for a period of time, for a couple of years, and I had a brilliant General Nimrod Alondi who was with me. I don't know, I'm sure he's doing well there. And from him, during my interaction to 2 years, I learned a lot. So we are aware that how the sky has become our front line in a fraught battlefield. And the skies, if guarded well with multifarious platforms, aerial platforms that have come, and these platforms have come because of all the 64 emerging technologies that we talk about in the world, the infusion of all the technology and a counter to those technologies, along with the standards, the global standards that are set in to manage these technologies. And finally, a country which has a technology, it is in an absolute position to deny the technologies. So we are combating these multiple challenges which we have to put our minds to. And now for that, I would now request Colonel Chaim Moriya to come over and share his experiences. And like I said, that we would restrict our conversation to about 10 to 12 minutes so that we finish on time. Thank you so much.
So I spoke quite a lot today. So, but I'll try to focus into three main points that I see the equivalent between what's going on in Israel and what's going on in Ukraine. And I think that will be the future of any intense conflict in the near future. First is we see less and less direct strike by fighters. You see less and less of them in the battle. Even standoff is less. You see mainly munitions and missiles launched from the ground, from different ranges, from different platforms, and the advantage from the enemy to be able to apply these types of weaponry is because it's relatively simple to operate, and it's detected only when the munition is getting to you. It's very hard to eliminate the launch itself, and also it requires a smaller logistic signature. To launch a platform of several UAVs by a crew of 3 or 4 people, it's not the same as launching an aerial attack from an airbase with fighters that need to fuel and munition and all the logistic signatures much bigger. So that's one area where the platforms are cheaper, simpler to operate, come from different directions, from smaller crew with smaller signature. And I think this is a common that we will have to find solution for, which makes me put the second point, which is sensing. We have a variety of effectors. We have many types of different hard kill, soft kill means. The future will be direct energy, of course, that will also join the spectrum of effectors. But sensing-wise is the challenge that we haven't completely resolved. And especially when we're talking about the very small, slow, low-altitude flying objects, such as quads and drones, etc. And how to detect these objects in time and to be able to operate effector on these threats. I think this is the near future technological challenge that needs to be addressed. We saw it both in the Ukraine and in Israel. There is a huge field for new ideas in that area. The Ukrainian, for example, with their innovating spirit, put some microphones on electrical poles to hear the sound of the incoming drones. And they created a net of those electrical poles with microphones. And using an app, they've been able to identify the direction of the incoming sound, for example. Just give you an idea of the innovating technologies that will be available in the next future and in the near future. And I think so sensing of small, low RCS, very low and slow objects, that's the second. And the third is that, and I talked about it more about in my presentation, is the necessity to harvest many, many resources and platforms and systems and forces to one centralized sky picture and one centralized decision-making process. It's very hard to protect large areas because the threat is coming so common, so cheap, so easy to operate. You need to protect larger and larger areas, and to do that by standalone units with no situation awareness, no awareness to what their adjacent units are doing, and not having the combined coordination, I think it's not an effective approach, and that's the third most important lesson learned for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel. Now may I request Mr. Eyal Zohar to share his experiences. So first we have the expert's experience, and then we'll take the Indian perspective. Over to you, please.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure being here. So my name is Eyal Zohar. I have more than 25 years of experience in technology, marketing, and innovation. And I summarize the insights from the recent wars in 5 main insights. Some of them maybe were presented before, but some of them maybe enlighten some other aspects. So first of all, I think it should be systems, all the systems that we invest in should be future-proof. Future-proof means that if now there is emerging threats coming that we are not aware at this stage, you shouldn't take the years to upgrade or replace the hardware, but you should think from software point of view. It's like in the future, it's like in Tesla. I have a Tesla and also I have an iPhone. Currently, software is uploaded and upgraded our devices using over-the-air technology. Similar things should be in the defense technology, and we are not so far from this, meaning our radars are software-defined radars, for example. Meaning that if a new threat is coming, you only need to upgrade the software. Now, currently it's not over the air, but with a regular update, but it takes only few hours or days to implement it. And this is the pace that should be in these days. When you're in war and you see a new threat, there is no time to upgrade the system. You need to update the software only. And fortunate enough, the system that we have in Israel, as well as most of the systems that we have in India, I'm talking mainly about the radars, are future-proof, meaning you need to upgrade only the software, and it enables you to deal with new threats. And this is what we have done in Israel as well in the recent conflict. So future-proof, flexible systems. The second point, the second insight has to do with the convergence of air and sea, not just aerial picture or situational picture, but also the activities. One of the first cases when we have in Israel is in July 23, when the Hezbollah launched 3 UAVs towards the Karish rig, which is a strategic asset for Israel, gas rig. And the naval radars, which are installed in the Israeli Navy, detect the threats quite shortly after they were launched, very far away from the asset. They identified these 3 UAVs, which were different UAVs, and 2 of them were intercepted from ships, Israeli vessels. One of them was intercepted by Israeli fighters, Israeli Air Force fighters. The communal aerial picture and the optimization of which target should be intercepted by which tool was some of the success stories that should be implemented and replicated. So there is no separately naval activities, Air Force activities, and Army. It should be a combined picture and optimizations of the efforts to intercept those threats. Number 3 insight has to do with the naval activities are now being expanded beyond traditional activities. So Israeli Navy took care also in protecting, for example, Eilat city in the south of Israel, in the Red Sea. And Israeli ships, South Sea ships, were located there, and they helped to intercept UAVs and other threats which were threatening the land. So not only the traditional missions of Navy, but nowadays we can expand these activities to protect also land and other strategic assets which are on the land. Number 4 has to do with BMD capabilities. Traditionally, BMD capabilities were mainly focused on land. In the recent years, there is a trend to go and to have BMD capabilities also on vessels. There are examples, of course, in Israel, but also I want just to share one example which was published so I can share it with you. Germany selected Israeli technology, radars, to be implemented on the F-124 frigates. This is a technology of radars which is quite the same as we have here in India, but with special doctrines for BMD. So now Germany has more survivability capabilities and more flexibility in taking care of ballistic missile defense, and the performance is now more flexible because it's not just in the land. This is a trend that we see and can be also implemented in India as well. And number 5, last but not least, is innovation. Innovation is not only handled by, there are 2 trends. I'm also lecturer for innovation for many years. There is 2 perspectives. One is what we call market pull. When there is RFP, when there is a demand, there are requirements for a technology, and we can develop and invest in this technology. But there is also technology push. There are some trends like artificial intelligence and others, which coming from, not from the defense industry. So we take many of these technology trends and implemented it into our radars. So for example, we have invested a lot in artificial intelligence. These capabilities are implemented in some of the implementations, and for example, give a high probability to distinguish between birds and drones, which is one of the challenges in the recent wars. Additional activities which has to do with innovation is comprehensive systems for counter UXVs. X has to do with not just aerial but also surface, and you can see what happens in Ukraine versus Russian frigates. So there are many examples in the recent wars when you have to counter different aerial and surface unmanned vehicles, and you can do it with both soft kill and hard kill capabilities. Another thing which I think was mentioned before is optimization of passive and active sensors. You need to optimize your usage of active and passive sensors to make sure that you have the best performance without being detected by your enemy. And I mentioned also taking the Tesla and the Android and iPhone examples, taking these technologies for a very rapid innovation, over-the-air updates of software and things like this, which we invest a lot, to make sure that the latest technology will be rapidly, instantly implemented when needed in a war situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zohar. So by the blessings of geography, India happens to be a maritime force as well as a continental force. So we have a strong continental area to defend, and the maritime border starting from east coast of Africa to Malacca Strait. So we need to have a great maritime perspective of air defense as well. So now I'll invite Commodore Manav to share his thoughts and experiences.
Thank you, sir. Distinguished Chair, respected co-panelists, senior officers, scholars, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me to share my perspectives with this very learned audience. And before I just start that, I will give a brief introduction. I've come possibly from the southernmost part, more than anyone else who's here, from Cochin. I am heading the Navy's gunnery school. Gunnery school in the Navy covers from the 9mm pistol till the biggest cruise missile in our inventory. So that is the entire range, and AAD is certainly one of the part which we closely cover. And therefore, when Mr. Oded mentioned that the performance on board Surat, the operators was good, so at least I had a wide grin on my face that our training has been effective. So over the recent past, the global security environment has seen a little transformation, and this transformation has been nowhere more evident or more seen than in the 2 contemporary wars which are going on, where both the seas and the skies have literally lit up. And the vulnerabilities of the maritime domain have intersected with the air domain, and the nations are now having to rethink not only their capacity and capability but also their doctrines. So my focus is on the maritime environment, I think which will bring the full picture. So starting with the Russia-Ukraine, where it is the third year and we already have shattered large number of assumptions which we had made that conventional war, what will be the duration. It has also exposed the vulnerabilities of traditional naval forces to modern missiles and drone attacks, and has illustrated how sea power, when there is lack of sea room, it gets constrained. And we had a spectacular incident early on in the war, wherein the Russian cruiser Moskva went down, and it sent shockwaves across all naval establishments, because one could immediately have the flashback of the Falklands, wherein HMS Sheffield went down. But what was surprising was not the technology. The anti-ship missile has been around. It was there in the Falklands. But what was surprising was how the Neptune missile, which was never tested, never proven, not known to exist, and possibly the complacency of the Russian Navy, that it, in its very first combat launch, the missile attained a successful hit with the vessel going down. As also the fact that TB2 Bayraktar in the area provided the ISR, possibly provided the ISR. So further, the innovative use of UAS, USV also, which has continuously challenged the Russian Navy without the existence of a navy in the Black Sea, and literally done a sea denial, as also the word used today was air denial. These platforms have been inexpensive and expendable, yet they have inflicted more damage. That is the point to note, that while the anti-ship missile has caused only one ship to go down, more number of ships and more number of vessels, ports have got damaged because of these unmanned threats. And even on the Russian side, initially we saw the Russians were using more of missiles, and later on now they have shifted their posture and they are using more of drones. They have also realized that how this huge shift is happening. In fact, another first has been last Friday itself. Many of us would have read the news wherein it was reported that a Ukrainian USV unmanned surface vessel has shot down a Su-30. It's a report only from the Ukrainian side, but it just shows that there is continuous innovation happening during the war, and it's getting good results, possibly. If I talk about the Israeli conflict, already the specialists have given a lot of information and perspectives to us, but I'll just add on to a few of them, or maybe just re-emphasize them. We have seen the maritime air defense driven by mass, speed, technological superiority. The Israel's layered defense of the Arrow system, the David Sling, and the Iron Dome has become a symbol of effective air defense, intercepting thousands of projectiles. Yet the evolving nature of the war and the multidimensional threat forced even the Israeli Navy to carry an Iron Dome on a helideck. That photograph was very much in the news, but I would like to get some perspectives of how the performance was of Iron Dome on the helideck of a ship. Maybe that could be shared by the Israeli side if it is available, because in addition to all the complexities which were brought out with respect to the missile hitting the target, at sea the stabilization is also an issue, so that added element is there in the maritime environment. The Israeli Navy has played a crucial role in ensuring maritime security, particularly around strategic assets like the Ashdod port and natural gas platforms in the Mediterranean. And the seamless coordination between the Air Force, Navy, intelligence units is what has made Israel's air defense absolutely effective despite all-round threats. Maritime air defense is therefore not just about technology, it's also about doctrine. So it's also about doctrine, training, integration, and quick decision-making. So from both the conflicts, I just try to cull out a few lessons, because this is all about lessons learned from these two conflicts, and they are sort of common and generally broad-based. The first is that, which is quite obvious, that when I was undergoing my specialization in the 90s, we used to prepare only for one threat every day, and that used to be the anti-missile defense. We used to drill again and again and again. But today, when we teach people, we are not teaching them against one threat. There is a bouquet of threats which is now available, And therefore, in the first to identify what is the exact threat and for the countermeasure to be taken against each type of threat is different. So that is the first lesson. Not only the unmanned aerial systems and loitering munition have inversed the price equation and reduced the sustainability of conventional missiles to succeed against them. But even the ballistic missiles have become much more common. Earlier they had a strategic context to it, but ballistic missiles are now being commonly used and are increasingly accurate. The Ukraine war showed us how a submarine in dry dock had a hole right in the center. That means the cruise missile has the capability of hitting accurately a submarine in a dry dock. That is a kind of challenge. That was the Rostov-on-Don. Some of you would have seen the photographs. And also the hypersonic missiles are here, which have compressed the reaction time. The other element is the coordinated strike, which we have also discussed in the previous thing, and we have also seen in the Russia-Ukraine war. All of these elements together coming with a simultaneous time on the target, kind of a way of targeting, is what will saturate the systems. So this is what the expanded spectrum of threat is, and therefore that brings me to my second lesson, that for this expanded spectrum of threat, we need an expanded countermeasure scope available. That means we should have multiple layers. We should have shipborne systems, airborne systems, shore-based, EW, all of them, and closely interwoven with a command and control system. I was given to believe till I came here today that the system, which is more and more automated, is going to be good for the future environment, but I've learned from my Israeli counterparts a very, very good lesson, which I will go and tell, that the operators are, so important, and they are being given even more than the US. They are being given importance with respect to the operator skill. So that is the element which, and apart from that, the passive AD, which, we sometimes, particularly in the areas which are no more on the front, we talked about the front, that is the camouflage, concealment, dispersion, hardening, deception. All these things are now important. And the third major lesson which I think emerges is interoperability between the elements. So everybody has talked about the three services having a common sensor grid and surveillance. But I think it needs to be expanded even beyond that. We have the CAPF, we have the civilians, we have our common populace who is seeing an aircraft or a drone flying, just like in Ukraine. I'm sure many of you would have heard about the EPO app, which Ukraine has developed. You can just click a photograph of a drone and send it, and it will go to a particular command center. And that command center already knows that there is a drone here, and it can be analyzed and possibly it can be tackled, or maybe if it is a false alarm, then it can be negated. So we connect with the civilian populace. We've got a huge lookout strength available if we count our civilian populace with a mobile phone in their hand. And the other end of the spectrum is our friends and partners who can also provide us information which we can integrate into the grid. So not only the three services, but a bigger sensor grid, then coming down to the shooter grid. And the fourth lesson which I wanted to talk about is the air defense from the sea. We have seen large number of missiles launched by Houthis, intercepted over the sea by the US carrier battle group and the Israeli naval ships and the NATO ships. So even the shifting of the SAR class ships of the Israeli Navy also is an indication for protection of oil platforms. Hence, it re-emphasizes the necessity of the Navy to protect air defense, to provide air defense, not only to its own carrier battle group, but also to the land structures and vital installations, and like in the example of the Houthis carrying out attacks of Bab el-Mandab for our sea lines of communication. Today, we have the Houthis supporting Hamas and carrying out attack in the sea lines of communication over there. Tomorrow they could be supporting someone else and again carrying out those attacks. So once again, the air defense in that area, if we have to provide, then we need to factor for that. The fifth point which I wanted to talk is need for indigenous protection capability. It's a lesson which many of the people have spoken before me, but I think I'll just stop it at that. Russia has shown us the way wherein they have, continued to keep their production lines up. And last, which is not the least, is agility. Agility in each and every of our processes. I think that our processes are quite slow. And we need to, these wars are teaching us that we need to move ahead with technology. The bigger the innovation jump which we have seen in these wars, the more spectacular results I think we have also seen equally. So I think agility is a very important thing, and the fact that air threat has become so potent, then we need even the agility of decision making to hit it on its source. So go to that agility, to be able to take down the launch platform before it launches. That is the agility which I am talking of. And there are many examples of this, whether I talked of the Neptune, the USVs, the UAVs, integration of the Storm Shadow, EPO app, all of them are spectacular successes because of technology, and I think which we also need to show that kind of technology, otherwise we should be ready to go down the Davy Jones locker. I've finished with my submission, so thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I'm hoping that some of the questions, if they are, I can address in the Q&A.
Thanks, Manav, for your very insightful and thought-provoking insights into the lessons learned. And I think as a nation, we are in the right lines that we are now focusing on the naval aspects of our defense, because that is what a $10 trillion or $30 trillion economy would look into, to have secure sea lanes of communication. And sea lanes of communication cannot be secured without having a good air defense. So thanks, Manav. And now I'll request in the end Brigadier MKK Iyer to give the Army perspective of the air defense. And without doubt, it matters the most to us as a nation in the Asian subcontinent, having the northern borders of 3,488 kilometers and the western borders, including the LOC of about 4,100 kilometers. I think nobody requires a more resilient AD than the Army itself. So, General Brigadier Iyer, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The best part of sitting here is you can see who has gone from vertical to horizontal position after a good lunch. The second aspect is when you get very little time to prepare for something, you keep it simple. So I was just praying that all these speakers who are quite eminent do not take away my points. I'm glad that they were more technical, so you'll hear from a layman's perspective how and what lessons we have learned. Well, I'm a small man, as you can see. I have been associated with IAI since 2009 with various air defense programs, including the being a pioneer in the MRSAM program. I'm so glad to see two of my colleagues, one from the Army and the Navy, working with ASI. So that's very nice to see. Well, now the topic which we are going to talk about is the lessons learned in the Israel-Iran war or conflict and the Ukraine-Russia war. Geographically, as you know, they are poles apart, and therefore the lessons cannot be the same. We come to Iran first. Iran, my first lesson which I learned studying this war was that air defense was quite inadequate. Why inadequate? Because they could not detect or intercept the Israeli missiles. I'm talking about the Isfahan attack of April 19. They're totally dependent on the ground-based air defense system due to lack of interceptor aircraft with the Iranian Air Force, which is a very heavy weakness. I'm a ground-based AD man, but the Air Force air defense is very, very important, has to be integrated with the ground-based AD system, without which you cannot have a foolproof air defense. The Iran's strategy, it depended a lot on this strategy called Ring of Fires by giving various weapons to all the proxy groups all around Israel, which probably has not worked because Israel offensive air power was much better, as well as the Iron Dome. Luckily, I've personally witnessed the action of Iron Dome in Israel when rockets were fired a few years back. It is good, yes, but for Indian land systems to make use of this, we will have to tailor it to our requirements rather than lifting it up and using it as ours. It is meant for their threats, and they have actually configured it for their own threat detection and interception. Coming to, therefore, the major weakness of Iran is they need a conventional air force. Having said that, coming to Israel, the efficacy of multi-tiered air defense system is for all of you to see. But despite that, one-odd missile will get through, like what happened in Ben Gurion recently. It will happen. You can't just stop it. Second is the retaliation power has to be very good with your offensive air power action, because air defense depends on your offensive air power. Like they went with a saturation attack of 100 aircrafts with refuelers and support system aircraft. The Iranians had no answer to take on 100 aircraft at one time. You need to have that kind of capability depending on the threat which we face in India from west as well as from the north. Now coming to the Ukraine and Russian war, if you we were all made to study the 1991 Gulf War, where the Air Force said that you cannot do anything without an offensive airstrike, and air power is the one which is going to be the future. Yes, it has its role, but nothing of what happened in the Gulf War happened in the Russian-Ukraine war. Nothing of that happened. In fact, most of the Air Force was not utilized because of the ground-based air defense system. The Ukrainians got these systems late, but once they came in, it became a real threat and a potent one for the best aircraft that the Russians had. Second important aspect is the Soviet Union put a lot of good things on ground with Russia, and that is how you see the S-300, 400 and Bug systems, which are excellent air defense systems, and they actually do the work for which they have built. Drones have their place and time. You cannot totally depend on drones and missiles as the Iranians tried to do that. It's not possible. So therefore, the whole point is that you have to have a combination, a tailored system with all these systems which can be brought together under one single platform. So what are the lessons that India has to learn? Offensive air power capability has to be developed. A system like Iron Dome has to be tailored for our own needs. AD systems, the numbers have to be much more than what it is today. We got to identify and prioritize our strategic VAs because we are a huge country. When the airfields close, it closes from Ladakh to Jamnagar and Bhuj. Issue of disruption of global supply chains due to the recent wars. So you got to be self-reliant, which can only be to an extent possible. And stocking and indigenous production has to be very, very important, as what the Russians have seen today. SAM readiness has to be at all times, and exercises, especially with countries like Israel, have to be done to hone your skills. And your fighter strength and infra development has to take place, especially in Ladakh. And the space-based systems like satellite and SPS-3 program have to be given priorities, as also S-400 and ballistic air defense. Of course, today I feel glad that I'm a gunner basically, so the guns have come into action again, especially for anti-drone operations, and with the human interface, they can be very, very potent. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Brigadier Iyer, sir. That was really very comprehensive, not only the AD aspect, op logistics, space-based issues, HR. So you've actually touched upon almost all aspects of lessons that we could have drawn from these conflicts that are going on for the last 2.5 years. So my sincere gratitude to all the speakers, especially our friends from Israel and Brigadier Iyer and Commodore Manav. I think to summarize, few takeaways, just in case if people have been more on a reclining mode, as Brigadier Iyer pointed out. What we have learned today is that the future wars are going to be based on the hardware, the software, and the users. So the focus, while we talk about the hardware, so if we have a certain amount of hardware that needs to be upgraded, about 20-25% of our investment as a force, as a nation, to be in the technology which is available for use for the war of tomorrow, and investing about 25-30% into the future technologies and embracing of these technologies in due course. And while we embrace technology, then we have to focus on the capability building. So it cannot be that we have taken on the technology, but then we are challenged in terms of capability, that is the HR. We have to start it concurrently or maybe even before, and that is where the joint exercises and joint trainings with friendly foreign countries and partner countries come into the fore. The other aspect that we learned about is sensors. So it's all about ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and sensors being active and passive, so that we have to focus on that as well. And finally, I think what is topmost is systems, processes, and functions. Almost everything that we do, the kind of warfare that we've been fighting, the kind of training that we've been getting, which Manav touched upon, we were templated in our thinking. Now our thinking has to be more dynamic, more robust, more technology-oriented, and willing to change. And that also involves the processes, how we acquire technology, how we train our men, and how we look into the future for rolling them out into our battlefield and thereby adopting or changing our tactics, techniques, and procedures. So finally, I would like to thank the audience for being very patient, and thank my panelists for delivering a very comprehensive insight into the AD aspects of these warfighting. And I don't think that anybody else needs this insight more than we as a nation, which are sitting at the cusp of both the technology and the geopolitics of the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Major General Neera Shukla and all the esteemed panelists for that wonderful discussion. Can I please request our chair, Major General Neera Shukla, to please help us felicitate our panelists as well. After the group photograph, we'd like to extend a token of thanks to all our panelists for joining in this discussion. Can we please get the mementos? General Shukla, first to Commodore Manav Saigal. Thank you so much, sir. This was a deeply insightful and thought-provoking session. And of course, we got to know diverse operational experiences through all of you. Next, Brigadier NKK Iyer, please. Thank you so much, sir. Can we also have the memento for Mr. Eyal Zohar? And for Colonel Chaim Moriya as well? Of course. Thank you so much. Colonel Moriya, I have slight more work for you. You perhaps can help us in felicitating our chair as well. Thank you so much. A round of applause for our chair, Major General Neera Shukla as well, for conducting the session so wonderfully and steering all the perspectives in his final concluding remarks as well. Thank you.